He's a graduate of West Virginia University. His areas of expertise include marketing and communication. He's had his own business. He currently works for Hammett, then became UPMC, and we are glad that he is with us this morning. In the meantime, a warm MIHS welcome, especially from the Honors College folks, Mr. Charles Hagerty from UPMC this morning. Thank you.
I really don't like microphones at all, so can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? All right, good, all right. So my name is Charles Hagerty, but I've never gone by Charles. Mr. Stoops is being way too polite. My nickname is Boo. Everybody who knows me knows me, right? Boo Hagerty is my name. I am called Boo because I had a nickname as a child where I cried too much as a child. And everyone called me Boo-hoo, and the who dropped and the boo stuck. So for the next half hour, I am Boo to you. I'm not Mr. Hagerty, I'm not Charles, I'm Boo. So one of the things that I learned early on in life is that that name came, I got it pretty honestly and pretty legitimately, because at the age of 6, my family was having a party. And it was a birthday party for my brother, and it was raining. And we were young, we had nothing to do outside, so we were inside. And I decided to make like a fort in my bedroom. And I took a lamp, and I put it between a mattress and the box spring in my bed. I took a sheet and a cover and put it over it, made all these tunnels, okay? And it was having a lot of fun. My older brothers were there, some of my cousins were there. And then it got nice out. So we then went outside. And as I was outside I heard breaking glass and didn't know what that was. Well, that was the flames being so hot that they were shooting out my bedroom window, and I had set my house on fire. Because the lamp, I left the lamp on, it started the sheet and everything else. And the next thing I know, our entire second floor of our house is in flames. And I am now an arsonist, okay? Which is a problem. So, we run in the house to tell my parents there's a fire, and we got yelled at. They said, go in the back door. I'm like, seriously? Okay. So we run in and we go in the back door. We said, there's a fire. And they said, where? I said, upstairs. And all of a sudden, smoke starts coming down. And before we know it, and the fire trucks had come, and everything else, we had lost everything in the second floor of our house. Everything. Our clothes, everything. Now let me tell you that it was not just my brother's birthday, but it was Labor Day. And it was not just, my brothers and I getting together. There was 40 people at our house for a Labor Day party, Labor Day picnic. It was the day before I started first grade. It was the day before my mom, who was a teacher for most of her entire career, she was going back to school, back to work the next day to teach after being off work for about 10 years raising her kids. I was the youngest of 5 boys. We were 6 years apart, and I cried for about the next 3 weeks straight. Because, again, I torched my family's house. So, they started calling me Boo-hoo in the who drops, and I'm Boo. So, I'm 53 years old today. Do I look it? What do you think? Better be lower number. I'm going to be big. No. Say that again? You are my man. 39, he says I look. You're a liar, but that's good. So, I'm 53 years old, and everyone still calls me Boo. But I gotta tell you, it was the defining moment in my life, at the age of 6. The defining moment of my life. Because what I remember about that day was a lot of things, but what I remember the most was my mom. And how calm she was, and what she did, her actions, after everything was kind of like settled down as much as you can imagine. I want you guys think about how your parents would be with you if they just lost everything because you set a fire to their house. How do you think that would go? Not good. Not good. My dad freaked out. He freaked. I have 5 kids. If one of my kids set my house on fire, I'd be the father of 4. I'm telling you right now. So my dad was freaking out. My mom, what I remember most is my mom coming outside with a card table, a birthday cake, candles, and matches. Which I thought, Mom, don't we have enough fire today? Setting it down, lighting the candles, getting everyone around to sing happy birthday to my brother. And years later I said to my mom, how how were you able to collect yourself? And she said, because it was your brother's birthday, I was not going to let this day be defined by a fire. It was his 9th birthday, we're going to remember his 9th birthday. I'm like, well, we sure are, you know. But I remember that. In one of your pillars, I wrote them down, one of your pillars, and I don't know if it's McDowell Intermediate, if it's the Mill Creek school system, I don't know, but Mr. Stoops told me, is responsibility. She had a responsibility to move on, to carry through, to push on, and that's what she did. So I tell that story not to make myself feel bad, because I should, but because I learned so much about a positive attitude and how you push through something that's tough. The very next day, and I'm going to demonstrate to you how important school is to all of you, and how important the people that you surround yourself in school are to you. The very next day I started first grade, and we actually went to school. And I started first grade, and I don't know if you guys remember the first day of first grade, but I do, because I went in my pajamas, because they're the only clothes I had, because everything else was in ashes. I went in my pajamas, and I met my teacher. She met me at the door. Everyone knew this, you know, this arsonist was coming, you know. So I met her, and it was a nun. It was a Catholic school. All I saw was 2 eyes, a nose, and a mouth. That's all I saw in her. And her name was Sister Mary Brendan. And I loved her so much. My first son, my oldest son, his name is Brendan. I named him after my first grade teacher because she was so important to me. And again, I tell you this because what I'm going to weave today in my talk is that there are so many people who have such a positive influence on you, and it's hard to recognize it in the moment, at the time, but I guarantee you, when you're my age and you're in your careers, you're going to be thinking about people who made a lasting impression on you when you were 6, or when you were, what are you guys now, 15? Right, 16? Right. So, I want to now take you to a moment, for me, that was very similar to this. Very similar to this. So, believe it or not, as old as I am, 31 years in my career, I have a lasting memory of being between my freshman and sophomore year of high school, right where you kind of guys are right now. So, it would be this summer for you freshmen. And I got a letter. And I got a letter in my house, at my house. It was 1977. And the letter invited me to a meeting with the Alumni Association of sorry, that's where I went. All right, the dirty little secrets, I went to Cathedral Prep. But the secret that I'll tell you guys about prep guys think they're cooler than everyone else. They're not. They think that. They're not. Okay? But you know how you're defined as being cool at prep? Anyone have any idea? You have friends from McDowell. They'll never tell you that. But the cool kids at prep are the ones who had friends from McDowell. So, you know, this whole rivalry thing, whatever. And I tell people the reason I went to prep is I couldn't get into McDowell. I just wasn't smart enough. So, I had to go to prep. So, are we through the prep thing now? All right, good. So, President of the Alumni Association sends a letter to me at my house asking me to attend a meeting with the Alumni Association and the student leaders of Cathedral Prep. And I was your age, getting a letter at home that identified me as a student leader. And I got to tell you, at that moment in my life, I felt like nothing but a leader. I was the youngest of 5 boys. I got beat up all the time. Did I mention my name was Boo? Right? Kind of weird. So I didn't think of myself as a leader. I just thought of myself as a high school kid, you know, who just went to school every day and did what I was supposed to do, and that was that. But it said I was a leader. So I went to the meeting, and this guy was great. He gave this talk about leadership. You know, it was supposed to be this meeting about planning some events and parties, but he gave this talk about leadership. He gave this talk, almost a motivational talk about, you know, whatever you're dreaming right now, keep dreaming and dream big. Whatever you think you're going to do, you know, think about it and think about how you're going to get there. He told me the line, think about what comes after, what comes next. You should always be planning. And I remember so many things he said that made sense to me. And one of the things he said is that he himself, he was, you know, early 30s, he was a lawyer in town. He said he had aspirations to be in politics. And, you know, that's kind of all he said. But you know what's really strange, you guys? Is it was 1977, and I still have the letter. I don't know why. I don't know why I still have the letter. But there was something about this guy that kind of got to me. I thought, this guy's pretty smart. And I'm going to kind of, follow him. And I remember going home and talking to my mom about it. I said, Mom, this guy was so good, you should get him. She taught at Miller. I said, Mom, you should have him come talk to your school. So don't shake your head. No, it's not that. He's like, oh God. So whatever. This is my mom. You want to make fun of my mom now? No? All right. I'll talk to you later. So anyway, I said, you should get this guy to come to your class, Mom, and teach your school. He wants to go into politics and you teach a government class. So she brought this guy in. And she would bring him in every year. And then one year she says, I'm going to run for Congress. And she brought him into her school when she was running for Congress. And 90 students in the senior class at Villa who were in her government class worked on his campaign. And she got every 18-year-old in the school to register to vote. My mom thought it was so important that you use that responsibility and use it wisely. Mr. Stoops can tell you, I was talking to him during the course of the week about who are the best people to vote for Mill Creek School Board. Because I want to have a say in everything that's going on, but I want people who are leading us to be the right people. So anyway, my mom brought this guy in, and this guy actually won his congressional seat that year in 1982. And he won by less than like 200 votes. It was that close. And he went back to the school and said, without you volunteers and without the 90 votes I think I got from you, and the people that you called for me, I would never be in Congress because of you. This guy's career trajectory was pretty good. He was 16 years a United States Congressman. He was 7 years as the governor of Pennsylvania. And he was the first director of Homeland Security for the United States after 9/11. His name is Tom Ridge. And some of you probably have never heard of Tom Ridge, which is scary but true. And I still have this letter I got from him because he called me a leader. So I want to do something for you that Mr. Ridge did for me and tell each and every one of you that you are leaders. You are the best of the best in this school. And I am so privileged and honored to get to talk to you guys today. Because you're the best of the best. And if you didn't know that, know it now. And if you didn't think of yourself as leaders, I want to tell you right now, I want you to think of yourself as leaders. Because you're leaders in this school, you're leaders in your church, you're probably leaders at home, you're leaders in a lot of different places you go. And I spend a lot of time, and I'm very privileged, I get to spend a lot of time in high schools talking to students just like you to say, this is a great time in your life, and you need to embrace it. I was talking to some of these guys in the front row, they talk about how much homework they have. And homework's tough. It is. It is, I'm sure it is. I have 5 kids, and I see how hard they work, and, but it's worth it because of all you're learning. But let me tell you that it's not the homework that's going to make you successful, and it's not the great grades, although they're important, that are going to make you successful. It's going to be your attitude. So, over the course of my career, and I've owned my own business. I have worked as administrator at a hospital. I now work for the UPMC health plan. Done a lot of different things, had a lot of luck along the way, but hard work along the way too. But one of the things I do is I constantly evaluate myself. I constantly say, how did I do today? Did I do a good job today? Did I do my best today? Could I have done better today? And I do that all the time. And like tonight, I'll probably say, how did that go at intermediate? How did I do today? I'll evaluate myself and I'll critique myself. What did I do well? What did I not do so well? So much so that I carry a sheet of paper with me. And it's funny because when Mr. Stoops told me about your pillars, okay, my words and your words aren't the same. However, there are ways that they cross over. But I carry with me what I think are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 words that I think are the attributes of great leaders. That I think make you good communicators. I think make you good, make me strong. And it's a dog-eared piece of paper that I carry with me every work day. Carry it with me every day. And I look at it sometimes and I say, am I following up on these things? Am I doing some of these things and am I doing them well? So I evaluate myself constantly. One of the words on here is courage. And I think courage is important. Courage in a weird way. Courage in that, am I brave enough to jump off a high dive? No, I don't mean that. I mean courage in terms of how do I face challenges? you know. And I tell this story, and it's one of my favorite stories. Tim told you, Mr. Stoops, Dr. Stoops, sir, I should say. You guys call him sir. Do you genuflect when you see him? No, you probably should. Okay, yeah, all right. Anyway, so he told you I went to school in West Virginia, and I was in this little town in West Virginia visiting some friends one summer years ago. My oldest son, I'll do the math, my oldest son's 27, he was about 10 at the time, so 17 years ago. And I go to this go-kart track. And have you guys ever driven go-karts? Go-karts are a blast, you know? And I am really competitive. So when I get on a go-kart track, I don't get on the go-kart track to try to have some fun. I get on the go-kart track to what? Someone say win. Someone say win. I get on the go-kart track to win. And I was very excited this particular day. Because it wasn't very crowded. You know, it was a nice track. The go-karts looked nice. Never been there before. Didn't know anybody around, which is good. You know, so, and my son is now old enough to drive his own go-kart. He's tall enough to drive his own go-kart, which is great because he used to ride with me and he'd weigh me down. Got my way, you know. So he's driving his own go-kart, I'm driving my own go-kart, and we're going to have a blast, all right? So we get after it, and I start driving this go-kart around, and, you know, remember, I'm a grown man now, so this story's going to get real embarrassing quickly. So, I'm racing a young guy about your guys' age, okay? And every time I get close to him, he pulls away from me. I'm like, wow, he's pretty good. He's a good driver. But every time I got close to him, I realized something. It's like, his go-kart was different than mine. It was definitely faster. And I'm like, well, that's not fair. So I pull up close to him, and he's one of these kids who's driving, and as I'm next to him, he kind of looks at me, gives me a smile, and then takes off. And I'm like, I am not losing to a 15-year-old little punk. No way. Not happening. So we're going around, and we're zipping around, and it's competitive. Now remember, I brought my son. I forgot he's even there. I'm so in my zone, you know. So we're racing, and we're racing. We get to the last lap, and I can't pass him. Doing everything I can. I can't pass him. So I get close enough to him, and now I've got a decision to make. So what do you do when you really want to win, and you feel like you're competitively maybe disadvantaged? What do you do? Who said cheat? Absolutely. You cheat. You cheat. You do whatever it takes. And by the way, we're both wrong there, but let's go with it, okay? So you do everything you can to win. So we get close enough, and I take this kid into the tires as fast. We're going as fast as we go. I got a peg. Now, pegged on a go-kart is probably like 5 miles an hour, but whatever. You know, picture like NASCAR now. So I'm going, we're going, and I get close enough, and he's dumb enough to kind of let me catch up. And I went, wham, hard left. He goes into the tires. He is toast. I win. He loses. All is good. I couldn't be happier, and everything is great in my world. And I pull in, and I'm like, oh, this is awesome. I just beat this punk, you know, and I'm good. Again, I don't even know where my son is, you know. And then I turned, and I looked as we're finishing up, and I saw something that made me want to dig a hole, bury myself in it, and never come out. I couldn't believe what I just saw. And my mind processed quickly a million different things as to how to react to what I'm seeing. And one was, again, to dig the hole. One was to run. As being a child, I had to, whatever it took. Because standing next to him, after they got him in, standing next to him was his mother with his wheelchair. Yeah. And now you're like, okay, you are an idiot, right? That's what you're all thinking, right? You are a loser, and you don't even get you shouldn't breathe the air I breathe. That's what you're thinking, right? I was devastated. Devastated. It's like, oh my God, what is wrong with me? You know? And I couldn't leave because, did I mention I had my kid there? Couldn't leave. So I do, I guess, the bravest thing I could have done, which is went up and embraced the situation, you know? And I went up and I said, I am so incredibly sorry. His mother and this young man are ear-to-ear grins. They're smiling. I'm like, I am so sorry. I am so sorry. And they're like, why are you sorry? And I said, well, I put him into the tire. She goes, it's great. It was a race. And he's loving it. And he goes, let me ask you something. You're not from around here, are you? And I said, no, I'm not. No, I'm never coming back either. And he said, so you didn't know about me? And I'm like, no, didn't know about you. So I said, well, I'm glad. I'm glad you didn't know about me. Because I had, and his mother started to tell me, he had a sledding accident the year before, and he lost all his ability to walk from the waist down. His cart was different because they were handheld. I said, so you did cheat. Your cart was faster. And he goes, oh, my cart's a lot faster than yours. I'm like, God. So, as we start talking, he said, ever since this accident, no one's treating me the same anymore. They're kind of babying me, and they're being nice, which is great, but I just want to be treated differently. I had this accident, and I don't want it to define who I am. Same thing my mom said when the fire happened. And it was her son's birthday. She goes, I don't want this to define his birthday. You know, so I don't want these, I didn't want it, he was 15 years old teaching me something. The reason I keep coming every time someone asks, I'll clear my calendar when I get a chance to talk to young, bright students like you, is to say, I learned from you probably as much as I'll ever teach you. Because this kid taught me about courage. And I always write it down, that courage is probably one of the greatest attributes of leadership. You know, it's fantastic what this kid taught me that day, of how brave he was. And me being an idiot, actually I got to learn something really valuable that day. So I'm going to park my thoughts for a second, because, and I know I don't want to put anyone on the spot, but does anyone have any questions? I have no idea, zero idea, what your expectations were. But my guess is it's Friday morning, you're pushing up against lunch, and you're like, oh my God, I have a speaker today, whatever, get better class, you know. So, I don't know what your expectations were for a speaker today, but does anyone have any questions? Anything that they want to ask me before I go on? Anything? No. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Because I have a question for you. And my question for you is, can anybody guess some different words I have on my list of what I think are great attributes for leadership? Does anyone have any guesses? See if we can. Anybody? Yes. Integrity. No. No. It's not. It is a huge, huge, huge word. And by the way, this list is my list, and it can grow. I love integrity. I'm putting it on there because you told you to teach me something. Oh my, can you read through? What's number 3 there? Discipline. Very true. See it? Discipline. Very important. What? It's not staged. Yes. Can you read this? Oh my, they're smart. Prep, they wouldn't get any of these. They're so stupid at prep. That's the first word. Humility. First word. Do you know that, by the way, show of hands, has anyone ever heard of Tom Ridge? Oh, thank God. Sorry. So Tom Ridge was in the cabinet for the President of the United States. And the President of the United States, George W. Bush, came to Erie campaigning. And Tom Ridge called my mom. I don't know. 30 years? I don't know. Long time. After he won his first election. And he called my mom and he said, Miss Hagerty, I want you to be my guest to meet President Bush. Now, meeting a sitting president has got to be a bucket list thing for anybody to meet a president. I don't care about your politics, whether you like the president or not like the president. You're meeting the president. And my mom said, that would be amazing, you know. So she went and got to meet President Bush. And what Tom Ridge said is, just so you know, George, kind of cool, call him George, right? Yeah, just so you know, George, I would not be where I am right now today. I would not be in your cabinet. I would have never been in the United States Congress, because if I lost the election, I was never going back. One time I was running, if I win, I go. If I lose, I'm done and I'll just be a lawyer. So if it weren't for Mrs. Hagerty and her students, I'd never be standing here right now. Humility. Humility. Tom Ridge was going to be successful, not because of my mom. He was going to be successful no matter what. But he was so humble and so appreciative all those years later to say, I'm going to bring a person who made a difference to me. And I'm going to bring her in a room, and I'm going to have her meet the president. That's a great story of just humility. What other words do you think are on here? Go ahead. Trust. It's not on my list, but it's a really good word, and I think it's part of your list, the pillars. Which, by the way, remember what I told you about how I need to learn from all of you? I'm taking your pillars, I'm adding them to my list. Because these pillars are really good, because trust is so important, vitally important. Anybody else before I kind of start to wrap up? Because we're getting close, aren't we there, Mr. Doctor? 2 minutes, 3 minutes. All right. There's another one on here, you guys. And it's I have humor. I have excellence. Excellence. Everything about this room is excellence. Everything about this room is excellence. I have wisdom, and I'm not talking smart, textbook smart, wise. Being wise. But the other thing I have, and I think it's the most important one. I know to me it's the most important one. I wasn't the smartest in my class, by far. I probably wasn't the hardest worker, by far. Matter of fact, I give you guys so much credit with all I grew up with 3 TV channels. Internet wasn't invented, With all the distractions you guys have, I never opened a book. Sorry, teacher. But honestly, God, you guys have internet where you can just open up a little tablet, just the information, right there. And there's some game called Candy Crush. You ever heard of that? Do you know the guy who invented Candy Crush sold it for $5.9 billion? Someone invented Candy Crush and remember me, okay? Because craziness of what's going on in the world, all the distractions. So I wasn't the hardest working, I wasn't the smartest, but you know what I think is so important? And I know what I think can get you really far? It's kindness. It's the simplest one, too. It's that smile when you don't feel like smiling. It's holding the door. It's just courteousness. But kindness gets you so far. And I don't have time now to tell you a great story about kindness, so I'm going to have to invite it back.